So do you want to land a high-paying cybersecurity role in 2025? Well, you need to learn this one skill that's not only going to put you ahead, it also can help stop hackers dead in their tracks. My name's AJ. I've been working in cybersecurity for the last 9 years, and on this channel, I teach all things cybersecurity for beginners. So let's get into it. I know when starting out in cybersecurity, it can be really overwhelming because there's so much information to learn. Well, you need to break it down by each skill, and to start with, focus on endpoint security. So in this video, I'm going to talk through what endpoint security actually is. I'm going to talk through why endpoint security actually matters. Then I'm going to show you how to learn endpoint security for free with a home project that you can get started with right now at home. And then I'm going to talk through the future of endpoint security. So what actually is endpoint security then? So it's actually the practice of protecting end user systems like laptops from potential cyber threats. And as you'll know, if you work for a company or you have worked for a company, you usually get issued some kind of endpoint, whether it be a laptop or a tablet or a mobile device. Well, all of these are possible attack vectors that could allow threat actors to target and then ultimately make it into the company network. So it's hugely important for us to monitor these employee endpoints so that we can try and detect potential malicious activity, because ultimately if an employee gets compromised, it could lead to a breach of the company network. And these endpoints are great avenues for threat actors to target, because often the end user is the one that will often make the mistake. Usually you'll have users in a company, maybe human resources, finance, for example, who are less technical users. So every user in the company will have an endpoint. So we need to be able to ensure that we do protect every user, regardless of how technical and technically capable they actually are. So protecting endpoint security is hugely important, and it matters because of this one fact, is that threat actors will try to target employees. They know that these company laptops could have some sensitive information on there, but the main thing that they know is that it's a target and attack vector that can allow them to go and move more laterally into a company network and ultimately achieve their goals, which it could be, for example, ransomware, could be trying to steal intellectual property, for example. Usually there is some kind of monetary gain, depends on the actual threat actor or the hacker, but ultimately they know that a good avenue into a company is often through the endpoint, and then once they get to the endpoint, they could then look to move laterally through the network. So this is why endpoint security matters. Every single employee will have a laptop or some kind of endpoint that we need to monitor for potential malicious activity, because ultimately if we can stop a threat actor on a user's endpoint or even stop them from getting on it entirely, then we'll be in a good position to actually try to stop a serious breach from taking place. So now we know that endpoint security is protecting end user endpoints from potential cyber threats, and we understand why it matters, because threat actors will heavily target endpoints to try and get into a company network. We now want to try to learn endpoint security for free, and the best way by learning is actually doing. So I recommend that you try to build your own home lab. And one way to do that, so I've actually got a video on this channel which explains step by step how to do this. So you're going to be building your own lab. You want to get a Windows instance. So this doesn't have to be on AWS. This could be on a virtual machine or maybe on an old Windows laptop that you've got already. But what we're going to be doing is using some kind of Windows instance, whether it be in AWS or in a virtual machine. Then once we've got that, you're going to be wanting to set up a free trial of Elastic SIEM. So SIEM stands for Security Information Event Management Tool, and it's a tool that all cybersecurity analysts will be using. So this is where the data is being logged to. So that we're going to be setting up something called Elastic Defend, which is an endpoint security agent. That agent is installed on this Windows device. That Windows device then logs all of that data to the SIEM, and then we're going to be able to actually detect malware using Elastic Defend. So like I mentioned, I've got a video on exactly this, which I'll share at the end of this video, so you can watch step by step on how to do this. What this is going to allow you to do then is build your own malware endpoint detection lab, where you're going to have your own endpoint. So in this case, it would be the Windows instance. So this was what's going to act as the actual employee endpoint. And then you're going to have Elastic SIEM, which is the actual login platform and alerting platform. And then we're going to have Elastic Defend, which is the endpoint security agent, which is going to be on the Windows host, which is going going to be there to detect the malicious activity. So why this actually matters then, so what this helps then is actually mimic the kind of roles and responsibilities of a cybersecurity analyst. So it actually gives you actual experience when applying for jobs. This is why these home projects are hugely important. So a SIEM, like Elastic SIEM, will allow you to actually log all of that Windows agent data. Then once you've got that, you can try to deploy malware on that Windows host. Then once Elastic Defend detects that malware, it'll generate an alert, and that alert will be sent to yourself, or in the case of a work environment, it'll be sent to the cybersecurity analyst to review. So what this is actually doing is mimicking the full process of actually being a cybersecurity analyst, which again, this allows you to actually help to apply for these jobs which are asking for experience. And I've actually used this project myself to get the job that I've got now, which I applied for and got 3 years ago. So this is a great project. I know it works myself because I've actually done it and used it to help me get a job, because it gave me experience with Elastic SIEM, which this company was looking for. It gave me more experience with endpoint detection agents and actually installing them, which again, this is what this company was asking for. And it gave me more experience as a cybersecurity analyst. So this is why it matters. These home projects that we're actually seeing is allowing new students who are coming through to actually apply for jobs asking for 1 to 3 years worth of experience. So this project alone might not get you a job, but it's definitely going to put you that one step further and actually give you some experience. So this is why it really matters. There's also more that you can do here as well. So there's something called the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So what this does, this is going to show you this enterprise matrix, and what this matrix does then, so it's broken down into the different operating systems. So you can see Windows here. So what this is doing is telling you the steps that an attacker will take when they're trying to compromise a Windows machine. Then within that specific step, you'll have these techniques, and inside these techniques is going to explain how that technique actually achieves the persistence, for example, step. So what you can do in here then, you can go in and it's going to give you the overview of what that technique is all about. It's going to give you some real world examples. So these are actually where threat actors have actually used these in the wild. So actual hacking stories here as well, which you can go through to try and understand how this is actually being used or has been used in the real world. And then ultimately then, this is what companies are looking for from you, is how to actually detect and mitigate these different techniques. So you're not expected to know every single one of these, but what this is going to help you understand is how attackers move through a Windows machine, for example, and how they might laterally move to different parts of the network, how they'll do data collection. This is going to help you understand how an attacker thinks. And if you can start to think like an attacker, it's going to make you a better blue team defender, which is what a cybersecurity analyst is. So this is a great resource for that, because it's ultimately going to help you understand how attackers are actually attacking these Windows machines. So something else that you want to do once you've started to look into the MITRE ATT&CK framework, you also want to start to look into the kind of well-known endpoint security tools that are out there. So CrowdStrike and SentinelOne are some of the most popular. But if you go onto this link here, the EDR telemetry statistics, what it's going to show you is an actual summary of the EDR, or the endpoint detection and response solutions that are out there. And it's going to give you a summary statistics on the different ones. So what this is actually doing is rating the different endpoint security vendors and agents that are out there, and actually giving back a kind of true representation on their features, which one's the best at detecting malicious activity, for example. So this is a really good way to come in here to kind of understand the main endpoint detection vendors that are out there. And this is going to help give you some experience and help you kind of have conversations with potential employers. So you might not have direct experience with SentinelOne or CrowdStrike, for example, but at least you'll understand what they are and what they're trying to do from your experience with Elastic Defend. So Elastic Defend are doing very much similar things to what SentinelOne or CrowdStrike are trying to do. So just come in here, start to understand the different vendors, start to understand why some of them are better than others, for example, start to understand which ones are better for certain operating systems. These kind of things are going to help you stand out again when it comes to interviews, because it not only shows your interest, but it also shows your ability to actually analyze different security vendors, which is also a very good skill as well when it comes to picking an endpoint detection solution. So now, where is the future of endpoint security actually going? So Many of these vendors, like your CrowdStrike, your SentinelOne, and all the other ones on that EDR list, are going to be integrating AI into their tools. They're going to be using AI to improve detections. It is a bit of a buzzword these days in cybersecurity, but it is definitely where the industry is going, incorporating more AI into their technology. And this is no different from kind of endpoint security vendors. They're very much going to be doing this as well. So cloud-based solutions as well. So as cloud infrastructure continues to grow, I mentioned Windows instance in AWS, for example. The future of endpoint is going to be required to actually secure more resources in the cloud. Very many of these vendors are also moving that direction already, and they do offer these kind of cloud-based detection agents as well. But very much so as more companies start to move to the cloud, as it becomes more popular, like your AWS, your Azure, for example, Google Cloud's platform, endpoint security is going to follow to try and secure not just the kind of traditional laptops, but also your cloud infrastructure as well. And then, of course, your Internet of Things. So these days, nearly everything connects to the internet, your fridge, your smart cameras, for example. All these things are considered Internet of Things, and these will also need to be secured as well. So endpoint detection agents are also moving towards being able to secure devices that are associated with the Internet of Things. So you might not expect an endpoint agent to be on a fridge or to be on a smart camera, for example, but these things can be compromised, so they do need to be secured. So the endpoint security industry is going to start moving towards trying to secure these things as well, because ultimately if it connects to the internet, then it can potentially be compromised. So to conclude then, you now have a better understanding of what endpoint security is. You understand why endpoint security actually matters and the importance of securing the endpoint to actually protect a company network. I've also given you a free cybersecurity project that can help you learn endpoint security. You can also look more into the MITRE ATT&CK framework and also the different EDR solutions as well. And you have a better understanding of the future of endpoint security. Now, if you want to go and watch the step-by-step video of setting up your own endpoint security lab at home, go and watch this video next. Thank you for watching. I'll see you over there.